Okay, so hello, Joe. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Joe Shetlock, who is a naturopath that I've known for a year or so, on and off. And welcome. It's so lovely to be chatting with you today. Joe, I wonder if you could just start by letting us know what a naturopath is. I know the name, and I know a lot of people watching this will have heard of a naturopath, but with no idea what it is. Can you tell us a little bit, please?
Yes, of course. And hello, Anne, and thank you so much for having me on today. So naturopathic coach just basically means that we work with nature. So, we use food as medicine. In fact, the course that I did, which is a naturopathic health coaching course, it's not even within my scope of practice to recommend supplements. I literally work with lifestyle and natural foods to help people elevate themselves to optimal health. So that's all that it means. It's nothing complicated at all.
Okay, so it's not, excuse me, it's not herbal remedies or anything. It is purely working with food, whole foods, natural foods, plant-based food, I presume. Yeah.
Yes. So I think a naturopathic term would probably cover herbal remedies and things like that, but that's a very specific qualification as well. So I'm not qualified to deal in herbal remedies because we know that herbs and certain foods are extremely powerful. And if you're working with herbs, you need to understand contraindications. And I think the herbal qualification is about 4 years long. It's incredibly complicated. So yes, I basically, as a naturopathic health coach, just work with food that we can all purchase easily, that's in our local supermarket or our markets, and help people to choose the right foods and to develop the right lifestyle habits to enable them to be optimally well.
Oh, that sounds so interesting. There's so many questions I could ask you, and I know we're going to get onto food a bit later. But firstly, tell me a little bit about your journey, if you would. I know we've had chats, and I know we've both metamorphosized from one thing into another, into the world that we live in now, because the world that we live in is much more natural, much more holistic than either of us have ever been in before. But would you mind telling us a little bit about your journey and how you got into naturopathic coaching?
Yes, of course. So about 12 years ago, I was running a little business actually in the fashion sector, and had not been feeling very well for quite a while. Symptoms that I just couldn't quite put my finger on. I didn't feel quite up to speed. And, we all think, oh, well, I'm getting into my 50s and probably heading into perimenopause and all that sort of things. But something inside me was telling me that there was something very wrong. And it took a little while of reaching out, going to see my GP. In fact, funnily enough, I made an appointment to see my GP 3 times and each time cancelled that appointment because I wanted to walk into the surgery and say, I'm feeling really tired. I mean, really tired. And I just thinking, well, everybody's tired, aren't they? I just felt a bit silly. Anyway, eventually it got so bad that I did go in to see my GP. And to cut a long story short, I was eventually diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, sometimes called ME. And by the time that I was diagnosed, the rug was completely pulled from under my feet. I was really not well at all. And of course, didn't really understand what the diagnosis meant because chronic fatigue is actually a symptom.
Of course, yes.
It's like somebody saying, oh, you've got a headache. And you think, well, I know I've got a headache, but it's not telling me why I've got a headache. So I realized after about maybe 6 months to a year of trying to work with the medical profession that actually they weren't going to be able to help me in any way. Not their fault. It's a syndrome that is very multifactorial, like all health conditions are very multifactorial. And I personally had to pull my own jigsaw puzzle of my health back together. And I
Yes.
always say to people, it was a little bit like somebody came into the room and threw a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle on the table and walked off with the picture box and said, hey, do that. So it
Wow.
took me a long time. It actually took me 8 years of doing the research, delving into scientific papers, trying to work out my own personal jigsaw and how to put it back together again. And once I had done that and I started to feel a lot better, I still wasn't 100%, but I was feeling a
Mhm.
lot better. I didn't want to go back into the industry that I had come from because I recognized that that had been possibly part of the problem and the stress. And so I started to think about other things that I could do. And at 60, that was quite an interesting concept because I kept saying to myself, well, I could just say to people I've taken early retirement and I could just waft off into the sunset. But, when we have this gut feeling that I wasn't finished, I felt
Yeah.
like I had too much to give still. And
Yes.
I've always loved working. I love working and I love studying. So I came across this health coaching course, which is run by the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London.
Mhm.
And I
Yes, I
just
know
looked at
you.
the course content and went, that is written for me. That is basically a course that outlines the understanding of the journey that I've been on. It puts the
Yeah.
science behind it all. So that's what I did. I went back to college at 60 and requalified in this peculiar thing called naturopathic health coaching, which I hadn't even heard of before, but it ticked all the boxes for me. And now I am qualified to help other people in their health journeys to
Yeah.
put their jigsaw puzzles together to elevate them to optimal health going forwards. And one thing that I will say is that at about 50, when I walked into the doctor's surgery for that first time,
Mhm.
I said, I feel like I am living in a 75-year-old body. And I knew that I was aging so fast beyond
Mhm.
my chronological age. And that's to say that now at 62, I feel healthier, happier, I'm slimmer, I'm more active, and I actually feel about 40,
Oh,
genuinely. And I had a grandson. My first grandson was born 12 weeks ago. And to know that I am going forwards into the next couple of decades with the energy and the vitality to
mhm.
help my daughter bring them up and to enjoy that is priceless, isn't it? And
It
that's how I
absolutely
feel.
is.
And that's my metamorphosis.
Oh, that is gorgeous, Joe. I love that. And I love to hear your energy. You always have so much energy. Whenever I've come into contact with you, you've always had so much energy. And I love that. And it just shines through. So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is to pick your brains. There's a couple of things that come up really quite often when I'm in consultation with my clients. And I wonder if I can pick your brains on them. And the first one,
Try me.
I know that people watching this are going to groan because it's something I say to my clients and friends and family all the time, and that's drink more water. Yeah, I can pretty
Yes.
much pretty much hear the groans from here. But
Yeah.
I say to people we need to drink more water. It helps give us energy, it helps our skin, it helps reduce fatigue, helps clear the brain fog. But why is that, Joe? Why does this happen? What happens within
Yeah.
the body? I'd love to
Yes,
understand that a bit
yes.
more,
So
please.
I always say it's great to understand what's actually happening in the body because
Mm,
we can be told to do something, but if we don't really understand what's going on, it's difficult to motivate ourselves to do
it
it.
is.
So the basic thing is that we have to recognize that the body is around 70% water.
Right.
So if we become dehydrated by not
Mhm.
drinking enough water, the body isn't at its optimal levels of carrying water. And if we think about every cell in our body is
Mhm.
70% water, we
Gosh.
only actually have to be around 2% dehydrated to start feeling negative effects.
Really, only
So
that little, that much of a
it's a
decrease.
tiny
That's,
amount.
yes.
And a lot of the time, maybe because we're a bit disconnected from our bodies, I'm not quite sure what the reason is, but a lot of the time when our body is a little bit dehydrated, we mistake that for hunger.
Yes,
And
I've
that's,
experienced that myself. Yes.
yeah, so that's quite common. So we think, oh, something's not right. Oh, I must be hungry. So we
Hmm.
will go foods. And of course, there are foods, and I know we're going to come on and talk about this. There are foods that are very, very high in their water content.
Hmm.
But generally, I'd say that we don't tend to go for those sorts of
No.
foods. We might go for something a bit more carbohydrate or sugar related, which then is an additional problem to the dehydration that we might be suffering from.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with my clients, I do really encourage them to drink between 1.5 to 2 liters of water per day, because, of
Lovely.
course, although the body is around 70% water, we are losing that every day through breathing, respiration, through our bowel movements. We'll lose
Hmm.
water that way, and other ways that
Mm.
we just generally use water when we're
Respiration.
exercising,
Yeah.
all those things. So we will be losing water. And I think we lose something like 2 pints of water overnight just through
Really?
respiration and general body sweating.
Yes.
So we, what we need to understand is that the hypothalamus, which is in the brain,
Hmm.
has receptors, sensory receptors, that when we start to get dehydrated, it releases what we call an antidiuretic hormone, which goes into the body and enables the blood to retain and absorb more water from the body, which is why when you're slightly dehydrated, your urine comes out a little bit darker, because it
Yes.
means that the body's trying to retain water within the blood system. And we know it's really interesting when I'm working with clients, and the first thing, so if a client comes to me and they say, yeah, no, I do get headaches sometimes. I definitely, a lot of the clients that I work with get brain fog,
Mm.
being so most of them coming into perimenopause and menopause. Our skin might feel a bit dry. We actually, energy a little bit low. And we can put this down to, we make excuses and say, oh, well, it's probably because of this and it's because of that. When
Hmm.
people start to drink enough water, it's the
Hmm.
first thing that they'll come back and say, oh, I'm not suffering from headaches anymore. And actually, I've
Yes.
had a little more energy and my mood's been elevated. So we
Yes.
can see the differences really, really quickly, just literally in the uptake of a bit of water.
Yes.
It's
And
really
it's
worth a try. What I'd say to all the people
really
listening
is.
today, just give it a try.
Yeah.
Aim for 1.5 to 2 liters, see how you get on. If you struggle drinking that amount of water because water can seem very boring,
Hmm.
um, add in a few slices of fruit or basil or mint, something like ginger, and drink it that way, and it will go
Right.
down much more easily, because it's nice to have a bit of flavour. But
Yes.
obviously, try not to drink sodas, canned drinks.
Hmm.
Even tea and coffee are actually diuretics. So although they can count towards your 1.5 to 2 liters, it's better if it's just plain water. It's the best. That's the best thing.
Yes.
That's what
That's
nature
the best thing.
intended.
Definitely. What about squashes, Joe? A lot of people say they don't, like you said, people don't like the flavour or they find it boring. And a lot of people will put squash in, often the low calorie or low sugar ones. How do you feel
Yeah.
about those? What's your recommendation around that?
Yeah, sadly, with especially low sugar and low calorie squashes, and this goes for all foods that are marketed as low calorie and low sugar, they tend to contain artificial sweeteners. And we
Mm.
know that artificial sweeteners are getting down into our gut and our gut
Mhm.
microbiome, which is really instrumental in keeping us healthy. We've got trillions of bacteria down there, which are constantly communicating with each other and communicating with our brain and communicating with hormones to make sure that the body is in a really healthy way. So when we're
Mhm.
drinking things like artificial sweeteners, they are getting down into the microbiome and they are disrupting
Oh,
the
do they?
communication of the microbes between each other. And I would just advise anybody, if you are on artificial sweeteners, please try and come away from them.
Mhm.
And if you're finding it very difficult to drink something that isn't sweet because you're so used to having a sweet drink, try
Mhm.
stevia, which is a natural plant-based sweetener, and just, use as little as you can, but that is a
Mhm.
better alternative to these other artificial sweeteners like aspartame, which we
Yes.
actually know they can be cancer causing as well in the long term. So really
Okay.
try and avoid those and make your own with a little bit of stevia and, as I said,
Mhm.
perhaps a little bit of fresh fruit in there to give it a nice
Yes.
flavour.
Yes. Oh, I love that advice. Thank you, Joe. That makes so much sense. And again, it's
Mm,
one of those things I'd heard that artificial sweeteners were bad for us, but I didn't know why. So it's really
yeah,
useful and really interesting to
yeah.
understand why and what it does to the body. And
And
of
the
course, we
interesting thing, sorry to interrupt, the
no,
interesting
no.
thing about artificial sweeteners as well is that it tricks the body into thinking that we're having something sweet and something sugary. So when the artificial sweetener hits the tongue, a message is
Mhm.
sent up to the brain to say, oh, yeah, we've got some sweet stuff coming into the body. And so, like sugar, will raise our insulin
Yes.
levels.
Yes.
Artificial sweeteners do exactly the same thing because
But
the
then they've
body
got nothing to work
thinks that,
against.
yeah, the body thinks that just the sugar's coming in, but
Yes.
so it's raising the insulin levels. And for anybody that knows anything a little bit about pre-diabetes or diabetes, it's insulin resistance that is the issue, which
Mhm.
leads into diabetes. So these artificial sweeteners aren't just sort of, you know, enabling the body to override what might be happening if we put sugar in there. So because the insulin levels are rising, we are still getting sugar spikes from artificial
Oh.
sweeteners. And in fact, recent research has showed that people, if they're using them as a weight reducing
Mhm.
aid, they're actually causing the body to store more fat than the full fat
Really?
sugar ones. And
Ah.
so they're just bad news in on
Mhm.
every level. So I
Right.
really encourage people to come away
Good from those.
from anything sweetened, and that includes fruit juices. I'm afraid those are also
Okay.
causing blood sugar rises in the body. So they're
Right.
bad. Anything that we have that's sweet that doesn't come with the fiber. So when we eat
Right.
fruit, which is
Yes.
sweet, it also has the fiber, and the fiber
Yes.
slows down the rise of the sugar in the blood. But if we're eating it without the fiber, it
Yes.
just causes a huge blood sugar spike.
Okay. That's absolutely fascinating. We hear about, less sugar, less sweeteners, more fiber, but to understand how that all works, and I
Yeah,
knew that it was better to eat the fruit that rather than drink the fruit juice, but to understand why,
yes, yeah,
now it begins to really fall into place. And I
great.
love all of that. That's just fascinating. Thank you so much. That's gone in a completely different tangent to what we were talking about earlier, but I love that, and it's all stuff
Yeah,
that comes up and is relevant for people, because
yeah.
more and more people are being diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and so this information is really going to help them. Joe, what I'd like to just come back to again, something you mentioned earlier, I wonder if you might just spell it out for people. The plant-based sweetener, stevia, is it called?
Yeah, stevia, stevia. Yes.
Lovely, thank you. And what I'll do is I'll mention it in the description of this conversation so that if people want to go and look for it. And can we get that just in the supermarket?
I think you probably could get it in the biggest supermarkets. They should have
Okay,
it.
lovely.
As always, please check the back of the packet that it hasn't been, other ingredients haven't been
Adulterated.
added in. But pure stevia is from a plant, and it's
Mhm.
just condensed down into the crystals, and it's very, very strong sweetness. I think it's 30 times sweeter than sugar. So
Yes.
you actually only need a tiny amount, and you can stir that, and you can use it in smoothies. You can use it, obviously, if you want to sweeten your water.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great alternative to the
Okay.
artificial
Yes.
sweeteners like
Yes.
aspartame.
Yes. Okay. Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. I'll make sure I add that to the notes and then people can access that and look out for that. That's brilliant.
Lovely, lovely.
So the other thing that we were talking about was, and actually water will help towards it. We're talking about the brain fog and hydration and our skin and all these things that actually make us feel better in ourselves. And you mentioned
Mm,
earlier, just increasing our water consumption just a little bit just makes us feel so much better, which of course increases our confidence. And this is something that is really close to my heart because it's something I work a lot on with the mindset aspect of boosting our confidence.
yes.
But are there foods that are also going, so we talked about water boosting our general well-being, making us feel brighter, more alert, happier, more
Mm.
confident. Are there foods that can do the same? Are there things that we should really reach for? Obviously we're ruling out all the processed foods, but are there certain foods that are
Mm.
better than others to just give us a quick fix of feeling really good, or things that we should be including every single day?
Yeah, well, okay, so the most important thing is to be eating a really diverse diet and a variety of foods. So I would
Mhm,
always advise people, when you go into the supermarket, think of the rainbow and pick up as many different colored foods as you can, because
mhm,
each of those colors contains different what we call polyphenols, which are plant compounds. And we know now that these plant compounds, when they get into the body, are doing amazing things for us. They're cancer protective. They're giving us all the antioxidants that we need in order to be optimally well. So
mhm,
in the body, when we the natural byproduct of digesting food, we produce things called free radicals, which is
mhm,
when we start to rust from the inside out. And it's a part of the aging process. But the really interesting thing is that we now know that you can either speed up that aging process, so that's the deterioration of your organs
mhm.
internally and externally, so this includes your skin, or we can slow it down, or we can actually reverse it in certain
Really?
circumstances. And this is all to do with these incredibly powerful compounds from our foods. So
Right.
we do have, there's been a lot of comment in the press about superfoods and
Mm.
what we're eating and all the rest of it. But you know what? They're all superfoods. All our fruits and vegetables are superfoods. And what makes them super is really being eaten in conjunction with each other.
Oh, okay.
So
So like
to go in
a
and,
synergy of them.
we know that for example, there's been a lot of hype about blueberries and these very dark colored fruits and vegetables, which have something called anthocyanins in them. And yes, they are amazing. But,
Mhm,
please don't go and just say, oh, I'm eating really healthily because I put blueberries on my porridge every morning. They are great. There's no doubt about it. But, please try and add in, dark raspberries or dark cherries, and there are other fruits out there that we
mhm.
need to be thinking about and adding in whenever we can, so that we're getting a really, really good variety of all these fruits. And
Yes.
thinking about hydration, obviously a lot of fruits and vegetables they've got a very high water content. So things like cucumber, even broccoli, apples, things like that have got a very high water content. So we can actually get quite a lot of our water every
Okay.
day from just the foods that we are eating.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I would say. Just up your fruits and vegetables every
Right.
day. We are
Yes.
aiming aiming for, a goal is that we should be eating around 6 portions of vegetables every day.
Right.
3 of those being green if you can, and the others
Yes.
being coloured, like your carrots or your mushrooms or your
Mhm.
aubergines, and then 3 portions of fruit. So we are now looking
Right.
at recommending 9
Fine.
portions of fruit and vegetables every day. And I would just challenge people and say, make that your goal. We're not
Yes.
perfect. Sometimes you won't reach that level, but you know, keep a diary. And if you're eating that amount of fruit and vegetables every day,
Mm.
come back and tell me how you're feeling. Let's say bye-bye to digestive issues and bloating.
Yes.
Let's look at how much clearer our skin is, how bright our eyes are. That just has so many knock-on effects. It'll get rid of your brain fog, your headaches will be better. And you're eating all those lovely fruits and vegetables in addition to drinking your water.
Mhm.
You are just going to be feeling a lot better.
Yes, absolutely. And I know I've done it myself. So I know when I
Yes.
do eat, and I changed my own diet. I mean, I've always drunk a lot of water, but I changed my own eating habits earlier this year, and the difference is incredible. It really is incredible. Just picking up on something you mentioned there. Um, we were always told 5 portions of fruit and veg, now heading up to 9, which is a great
Mm.
goal to aim for. Is there an easy way to calculate a portion?
A
You say about
handful.
portion. Oh,
A
really? Okay,
handful,
it's literally
yes.
a
So
handful.
your own palm is
Yes,
your portion. So
right.
on the whole, now we're aiming for is actually 30 different plant varieties per week, which sounds
Ah,
like a huge
yes.
amount, but
No.
it does include nuts and seeds, herbs
Mhm.
and spices. So obviously when we're looking at things like herbs and spices, a portion is going to be smaller than a handful because that's a lot
Yeah,
of a herb. But when you're
yeah.
looking at fruits and vegetables, generally speaking, a handful will give you
Okay.
what you're looking for.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good to know. That's good to know because you wonder how many a portion of blueberries it actually is.
Yes.
Is it 4 or 5?
Yes. It's a
People chuck
really,
4 or 5
good,
on their
it's a
porridge, as you
really
say.
good point, Anne, because I have had clients when we've been talking about these 9 portions of fruit and vegetables that have, gone away and thought that it was a bigger amount than that. And they're sort of like, oh, I'm really, really struggling. And then I found out that actually their portion has been a bit bigger
Is a
than
whole
what we
punnet.
would recommend. So it's a good
Right.
point. And so if you keep to a handful,
That's
you'll
really
be
good.
okay. And I would just say to people, every time you're having a meal, just add an extra handful of something on there. So if you're having an
Yes.
omelette, put a handful of rocket on there. If you're having your meat in the evening, 2 portions of vegetables, and you'll very quickly build up to eating the right amount every day.
Love that. That's brilliant advice. That's so easy and practical. We don't want to make life complicated. Life has got enough going on in it.
Exactly.
We just want to add in something that's really easy. So I really love that. Thank you so much, Jo. That's just brilliant. So we're about coming to the end of the time that we've allocated for this. I wonder whether you could just share a few details of how people can find you. Obviously, people can contact me and get in touch with you, but how can they find you?
Yeah.
And if you can let me know your website and I can pop it in the details below.
That'd be great. Yes, I have a website. I don't do social media for many reasons. One of the
Oh,
reasons
I love
because
that.
I'm in my 60s and I'm just not going there anymore. But I
Good
do
for
have a
you.
website and I do regularly update my website with recipes and things like that. So people have got a
Lovely.
resource that they can access into. And it's very simple. It's www.joeshacklock, which is my name, and that's spelled SHACKLOCK.co.uk, and I'd be delighted to hear from anybody if they'd like to get in touch with me. What I do, Anne, as you know, is I offer what I call a free discovery call. So if somebody's
Mm,
interested in what I do and how I might be able to help them, then we book a half-hour call. It's no obligation call just to find out whether I am able to help them in the way that they want me to help them,
yes.
and whether we're the right fit together, because not all partnerships are made in heaven, and we want
Mm,
to make sure that we can work together, and that also people that are looking to elevate their health are prepared to put in the work that it takes
course.
to do that, because it does mean change in your life. But if you're ready for that change, then, you know, I could be the person to help you put that change in your life.
Yes,
Definitely.
yes, yeah, definitely. Change is something that does take a bit of effort, a bit of work. But when you're prepared to do it, and I know I've got a lot of action takers in my clients and my audience, and when they put in the work and put in the effort, and the rewards that you get are just, well, as we
Yeah.
know, life-changing, aren't they?
It's
Completely
so
life.
true. It's so true. And, you know, if we keep on doing the same thing as we're doing at the moment, we
Yeah,
will get the same results. So if anybody is not
absolutely.
feeling 100% and you're not putting any changes in, or you're finding that the changes that you are putting in are just not giving you the results that you're looking for, then it's definitely worth working with a coach or a therapist in order to change either the mindset or the physical changes that I tend to work with, which are more nutrition and
Yeah,
lifestyle based. And then you've got somebody that you're accountable to, that keeps you on track. And that's there to support you, basically, because
exactly.
sometimes making big changes is a very lonely process, and it's
Absolutely.
nice to have somebody there who's got your back and that can support you along that journey.
Definitely, definitely. That's really, yes, that's really beautifully put. I love that, because it can be quite daunting making big changes, and it is nice to have someone that you can ask the questions, you can fall back on and ask
Of
those questions.
course.
Just something before we go, you mentioned something in that last comment about making change, and actually that if you don't make changes, then things are going to stay the same. There's a phrase I heard a while ago, and I found it in a pack of cards. Most people will know that I'm really into my oracle cards. This was a pack of mindset cards, and I'm going to share it with you now because it's
Yeah.
so simple, but I love it. And it's nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yes. Love it. Love it. So
Super
true.
simple, but so
Yes.
true, isn't it? We've got
Yeah,
to make, if we want something different, we've got to do something different.
we do.
And I think, yeah, we are both living proof of that, I think, because
Yes.
we've both made big changes in our life.
Yes.
Oh,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Joe, thank you so much for coming here or being online with me today and giving up your time to share your knowledge. It's just so interesting. We could talk for hours, and we
We
have talked,
could.
and hopefully we will do a
Yeah.
few more of these chats, and then we can share a bit more information with people. And I've really I've been fascinating. I've learned so much, and I've made some notes myself. So thank you so much for
That's
that.
lovely.
Really
You're
lovely to
so
chat with you.
welcome. Thank you for having me today.
You're very welcome. Lovely to see you again. You
Okay.
take care. See you
Take care.
soon. Bye.
Bye.